Okay, hi, I'm Mike Evans, and today we're going to be learning how to assemble the Popup Mageboat. Okay, it's a little boat that you can have your miniatures ride around in, and hopefully get attacked by like some sea ghouls or something. So that's what it looks like, and we're going to learn how to put it together. You're going to need some supplies. First thing you're going to need to do is have a printed out copy of all the pages from the PDF. These ones I just printed on my home computer. I found that if I printed them page by page and then flipped them manually, I got a better alignment than when I had my printer print double-sided automatically, but you may have different results. You're also going to need a couple of pieces of backing material. For these ones you need a piece that's, if you're going with rectangles, 7 inches by 12 inches. If you're going to, some of them are 6 by 14, so if you just cut some out that are 7 by 14, it'll fit all of them and you can trim them down, which is what I've done here. A ruler, always useful. An X-Acto knife, definitely going to be needed. Some extra blades. I probably go through about 1 per pop-up setting I put together just to make sure they stay sharp. And a dried out ballpoint pen, which you can do. You can see here I've removed all the ink and then I flushed out the rest. So I removed the ink tube, flushed out the rest, and then drew a bunch with it to dry it out. And that's important because that's the best way to score the lines that I've found, so that they bend but don't crack along the edges. And some double-sided tape. For this project, we're using double-sided tape. If you decide to save on your heavy paper and just print on like regular paper instead of like an 80-pound cover, then you're going to want to reinforce the edges of stuff a little more. And I don't know if double-sided tape will work for your base, but if you printed everything on 80-pound cover stock, then the double-sided tape works great for the base. So we're going to go ahead and use that and start putting things together. Okay, so we'll start with the base. The base here is shown which part of the base each of these sections are, and you match up the textures and glue them together. So that's what we're going to do before we do anything else. Just cut those out and glue them together. And if you want to use your ruler to get your lines faster, if you have a metal ruler, that's pretty great. Alright, hold on. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to cut precisely along these lines right now. You don't have to, because you'll be trimming your mat board too. Once you got a piece cut out, you'll notice that the base center line was marked. And I think it's a good idea to go ahead and score those before you put everything together. I mean, you're basically just folding it in half, so it's not that complicated, but I think it's a good idea to have it scored. So you use your scoring tool, in this case this dried out pen, and you just put it on one end of the line, draw to the other side, makes a nice bend where that's going to bend before it bends anywhere else. So and because I know that these two pieces are going to be overlapping, I'm not going to worry that much about cutting off this part, because that's all going to be underneath anyway. So you get your double-sided tape, and I've got this nice double-sided tape that has backing on it, but I mean, you can just buy a roll from Walmart or Target, and those work great too. Any sort of place that sells tape. So you're going to want to be a little careful before you set it down because it's going to stick. Obviously, it's double-sided tape. And make sure you line up the texture on one end. And then make sure it lines up all the way along. And tape it down. I think I might, close enough. If you're like a 1/16 of an inch off, it's not going to make that big of a difference. So just try to get as close as you can. This is not doesn't have to be perfect. It just do it as good as you can. It's paper. If you mess up, you just printed one out. You could probably print another one out, right? So and there it goes. I usually snap my X-Acto knife blade at this point. I'm not very good with X-Acto knife blades. Some people might be. But for me, I usually end up with a broken blade a few seconds into using one. Which is fine, it's just as sharp, just a little less pointy, Alright, so we'll glue this piece on here, and then we'll glue our other piece on over here on top of it. Actually, I'm going to glue these pieces together before I put them on, just so that I can make sure that this piece overlaps all the way up. And this part's, you're going to do this base assembly for every base, unless you're lucky enough to have a large format printer, or to know a guy that has a large format printer. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this so that it matches up with the other one. You don't have to. Okay, so we'll check these to make sure they line up good. They do. They even line up well. If you're one of those people, you know which people I'm talking about. People that use correct grammar. Yeah. And now, unfortunately, I cut my fingernails right before doing this, or 2 days ago. Same thing. So it's going to be kind of hard for me to peel the tape off. You guys are just going to have to watch me struggle with that over and over and over again. If you're thinking about, hey, I'm going to put together some pop-ups, and then you're like, but wait, my nails are too long. Just hold off for a day or two before you cut them, for the sake of being able to make this work. Especially if you use double-sided tape with backing. I got this stuff off Amazon. Wasn't too expensive. And I got a lot of it. I've already put together a bunch of these with this same roll. So once again, I am struggling with the tape. Come to me. Okay, I got it. And this part's not really, it's off on the side. It's not going to attach to anything. So you can get it as close as you can, but you want the textures to match up close enough that it's not glaringly obvious that you did it wrong. But there's no real structural components out there on that side. So you got this. You might have a couple of pieces of white area hanging off the side. That's not a big deal, because what you're going to be doing is folding this in half along that center line that was marked on your leftover pieces. See, it says base center line right there in blue. So fold that in half, give it a good crease, and from there you're going to need to put tape all around the outer edge if you're taping it down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I might fast forward through this part. So what I'm saying here may or may not matter, but basically you want that tape all the way around this outer edge and along this edge right here in the middle too, because that is it's where it's going to stick. And with a thick paper, you don't really have to worry about taping the middle down. The tension of the tape along the outer edge I've found is plenty to like hold the whole thing, pull it all down, make it work. So and this is probably where you'll use the most tape on the pop-up, just because you're gluing down the whole perimeter or taping it down. So if you wanted to save on tape, you could glue this. I like the tape. I think it's actually a little bit more flexible than Elmer's glue or any other glue you could normally use for paper. And I like printing them off on like a glossy paper because that makes me feel fancy. So because of that, like your average white glue just isn't going to stick quite as well as it would to an unglossed page. Okay, so once you've got it taped all the way around the outside, you are ready for attaching it to your base material. So with that, got a little trick that I've learned. You want to make sure that there's a space in the middle between the two base plates. If they're too close together, it will make it difficult for your pop-up to stay open once you put it out. And you might have to like leave it open for like 15 minutes before your game or whatever to make sure it stays flat. And this way, the weight of this mat board, which is what I use for backing material, holds it open. Now you could use any number of things for backing material, but I like the mat board. So what I like to do is set my base beside one piece of mat board and then put the other piece of mat board on top of it. That way I know there's at least the thickness of a piece of mat board between the base and the mat board. I'll just carefully align it as best I can. Make sure that there's that space there and push it on. So as you can see, the base fold comes out just a little bit further than the mat board, and that's what you want. And then you do the same thing on the other side, except you've already used your other piece of mat board, so you just kind of line them up. Line them up good. Or well. You could line them up well too. Okay, so that's that. Just line up this piece of mat board with the other piece. Make sure you leave a little bit of space there. And that'll make it so that this opens much more easily. And when it opens, you'll see that space. That's fine, that's not going to cause any difficulties. In fact, it's going to make things work a lot easier because there's that little space between the boards. Okay? Now if you're like me, and back in the year 2009 when you were in grad school, you bought a paper cutter at Staples in downtown Chicago, then you'll have this handy dandy paper cutter here. But if you don't have a paper cutter, you can cut this out with an X-Acto knife or some scissors or something. Just cut off the excess mat board, making sure that you don't cut into the texture. And sometimes at this stage, after I've cut everything out, I like to go around the edge with some black marker and make it look kind of pretty. But I'm pretty sure all you guys already know how to use markers, so I'm not going to show you that part in this particular video. Maybe I'll do another video, just about markers. But but for now, we'll focus on the pop-up. All right. So there, you cut off your edges and a nice hexagon, and you are ready to start the rest of your process. Now these extra scraps of stuff, you don't need to worry about cleaning those up or anything. You just take those and like toss them on the floor, and probably someone who lives with you, a roommate, a partner, your wife, his husband, will just clean those up. It's kind of cool. Okay, so you should have 3 pages of parts all printed out, and what you're going to want to do is score all the parts first. Okay? You'll forget if you don't. So what scoring is in this project is anytime you see these blue arrows on one side of a line to the other side, you're going to score all of that. Okay? And then you're going to put it all together. Now in the instructions, it has a diagram of how to cut out this stair piece. And I'm going to show you that. But let's start and let's do it piece by piece by number. Okay, so we'll start with number 1. We'll cut it out, we'll glue it down. And we're going to do that after we score because I keep forgetting that I told you to score first. And I keep repeating it because it's something I forget to do myself. And then I'll get to the end and I'll be like, holy crap, why didn't that get scored? Because I forgot. That's why. So you go ahead and score all the parts before you cut. That's everything on parts on one page, and then the next page. Okay, so this part, it's going to show you how to do it. I'm going to show you now. You're basically, if you hold the page like this, you're going to want to score all of the lines that are horizontal right now, and you're going to cut these lines on the stairs that are vertical. Okay? So, score, 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 and then this is a score to there. Okay, this piece is probably the most complicated piece in any of the ones in this set because it's got these stairs, and I love it, but it is a little complicated and easy to get wrong. So if you are having trouble with that piece, then I can show you how to do it in a second. Once we get to part 8. For now though, we're just scoring away all these lines, blue arrow to blue arrow. If there's a little thing, a little dog leg saying, well, don't do the arrow, do over here, then that's where you go. If you're not sure if you scored yet, you can kind of rub your finger across the part, see if there's a little bend there. If there is, you already scored it. If you didn't, then you still need to, so do that. Okay, so that should all be nice and scored. And that's all the pages, so now we start with part number 1, and we glue it down. Well, we cut it out first, let's do that. And this is where you'll see if you got your printer to align correctly or not. You want to print these out 100% size, and my printer, it looks like, is about 1/8 of an inch off. That's fine, close enough. So this part, 1 to B, gets glued down right here where it says 1 to B. Okay? Now even though the one's going to be on one side and the other one is going to be on the other side, see this one's over here on the left and this one's over here on the right, they should be facing the same direction. Like they should be both be facing up or outward or wherever. So put some tape on this guy, cut off the excess tape. If we want, we can see this side has a little bit of white on it, so we can trim. If you end up with a situation like that, you can just trim it a little bit so that the extra white is off, where just your home printer hasn't aligned quite right. I found that if you have it printed somewhere, they usually do a better job with alignment. They're used to printing like pamphlets and stuff that need to line up. So then you just line it up with the glue spot, line it up with the textures, and attach it. So that's part 1 down. Part 2 is labeled with big black 2, just like 1. So pretty easy to find. Cut it out. And there's a little extra space on this one too, so we're just going to trim that in the interest of things looking nice. Get our tape on there. Trim off the extra tape. We can glue this down. Now, well, I keep saying glue. Used to gluing it. We can tape it down. So if you are using glue, you might have to hold stuff in place a little bit longer, or at all, which is not something I'm having to do right now. Okay, so that's part 2. Now we find part 3. There it is, part 3, and yeah, we scored it. Okay. So these parts are basically going to be the parts that kind of hold everything up in the middle of the boat. Make sure the deck stays flat when the folding and bending starts. Three to B. Goes right here. You line up the textures. This texture looks like pretty close to lining up. Okay. There we go. Alright, so that's parts 1, 2, and 3. Those are pretty simple. They just form sort of a letter C there, and when folded. Part 4 is a small step up in complication, but not much, because part 4 needs to be bent in the middle, like so, and then glued down on these spots, 4 to B1, 4 to B2, like that. Okay? So we're gonna. This is the mast of this Mageboat, and that bend in the middle is what's going to make it stay strong enough to hold up the sail and not be all bendy and weird. Curse you, fingernail clippers! Got it. Okay, so this one, make sure you line it up right. 4 to B2, 4 to B1, and the textures on this one match pretty well. So if you line them up with the textures, make sure the angle on each side is about the same, then you'll end up with this nice mast. Okay, and you can fold it in half, pop it back up. Okay, perfect. Next, part number 5. Part number 5 is just the side of the boat. So, but you're gonna need to cut out the rails if you want it to look nice. You don't have to. there's no real need to have these cut out, except that it looks awesome. I mean, if you have, you know, a problem cutting out things, like maybe you only have scissors, you could just color that in, like a black or something, and it would look fine. But for me, like, I love the little details on things, which is why I got into miniatures and pop-ups, and so that's I still kind of want to get into those ceramic Christmas villages, right? Like, I feel like that's like, my grandma had those and they were awesome, but for me, I just haven't taken the opportunity to get into ceramic Christmas villages yet. But someday, you know. Okay, so you've got part 5. Pretty simple. 5 to B, 5 to B. This is that side of the ship. Back there. I imagine that this is sort of the side of the captain's quarters. It's got these little windows here, so the captain can like look out, be like, oh dang, we're being attacked by another kraken. Okay, so that's part 5, part 6, and part 9. This one's part 6. Alright, so part 6 is a big part, and it's important because it's gonna attach to the sides, attach to the middle, and it's gonna do a lot of the work in terms of, you know, places where, you know, the sailors are standing. In my last campaign, this boat was like the boat they took to break some guys out of prison or something, and it worked out pretty well. I mean, the guys they went to break out were already dead, but they were pirates, so it's like they chose that line of work in a way. When you choose a life of piracy in a fantasy world, you can't have a whole lot of expectations in terms of longevity. Okay, so make sure this is pointed the right way, and then make sure 6 to 2 lines up with 6 to 2, and then just glue it in place there. Okay, so that's your main deck. Part number 7 is going to be the fore deck. Is that a thing? I don't know. My knowledge of ship terms is kind of limited to like port and starboard, and then I started to kind of pick some up when I was playing Sea of Thieves a lot, but I forgot it as soon as I stopped. So I was mostly just yelling at my brother Josh. Raise the sails. Lower, whatever. Just the sails. Put them out. You know? Anyway, we died a lot. But I think that is pretty much the universal experience with Sea of Thieves. You guys tell me. Not really. I've disabled comments for this video. Okay. So next, this piece has got to line up. And just put it on the spot there where it goes. Line it up with the glue spot. Okay, so now you have your foredeck, your main deck, and you're obviously realizing now that I have no idea what I'm talking about ships. So that's fine. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the complicated part, okay? Cutting out part 8. You've already scored these horizontal, if you have your piece like this, you've scored the lines going this way on the steps. Boom, 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 and then down this line in the middle. And then over here, boom, 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 down this line, okay? So now you need to cut the other lines. So you cut all along these lines from the top of the line to the bottom of the line. Top to the bottom, top to the bottom, okay? And then you cut out all the white space because you have to. And cut out these little rails because that's necessary for it to look sweet. So, we recently moved to Utah, where there are no boats because it's a desert. I'm just kidding. A surprisingly large number of people own boats. So I was like, to my wife, I was like, hey, let's, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your interest in getting a boat? And her response was 0. So, below the scale that I gave her. So it looks like we'll be holding off on the boat for at least another couple of weeks before, you know, Memorial Day. And when you really need a boat, you know. No, I'm not a big boater. I did learn some basic sailing because my dad decided he was going to make a canoe into a sailboat one time. More on that later. Okay, so with this piece, what needs to happen is it needs to go like this. The back goes down, the top goes down, the front comes up, and then it folds like that. So you see that? Oh, it's a nice little staircase that we made. And then this piece and this piece both go that way. And this piece has to come up like this and then go down like that. So the whole thing is sort of a, makes a zigzag up and down, and the stairs are over there, and this piece is going that way, okay? So now that we've kind of cut out the parts for part 8, we can attach part 8 to all the places that it needs to attach to. The first one is going to be 8 to 1, because that's going to be in underneath. And, we could glue it later, but I don't want to. It's hard. I don't like to do hard stuff. So, then if you haven't clipped your fingernails recently, you can just pull this right off. Okay, there we go. Okay. Make sure again your numbers are going the same way. 8 to 1, 8 to 1, and just put that over the glue spot there. Next, I'm going to attach 8 to 6 2. I feel like that's a pretty good spot to glue to. Right in there. I'm going to grab some scissors real quick because it's going to be easier to trim some stuff. We're going to trim off your extra tape because this piece is not 1/2 inch thick. It's more like 3/8, am I right? And but I'm not going to glue that down yet. I've attached that piece, but I need to know exactly where it's going to end up before I glue it down. And the angle is a little tricky to get right because it's not going to be at a right angle. It's at like a 25 degrees off. Not 25, I don't know. I don't know my degrees very well. Just watch, okay? It's the purpose of this video. Okay. So, you want to make sure those textures line up. kind of peel. Okay, yeah. Make sure the textures line up, and then attach this piece to this piece, okay? Just like that. Kind of at an angle over the spot. There you go. All right. So now we need to attach 8 to 5 still. That's the one piece that's left to attach. 8 to 5 goes to 8 to 5. And that glues on right there. Okay, so we got a lot of our pieces on there, and next we're gonna glue down the next part, which is part number 9. And part number 9 is the back rail. So if you have scissors, I mean, you can just cut these out with scissors. You don't have to use an X-Acto knife. Nobody's forcing your hand here. We have no X-Acto knife supremists on this particular project. Although I will tell you it's easier to cut out the interior spaces first. But you know, you can cut them out later. It doesn't matter. So this will give you the back rail. And this piece is kind of important because it helps the back of the ship look okay. So these pieces are going to be tucked up underneath this one. So you'll see the little glue spots on there on the rear deck, and these glue spots will match up with those, and the piece will kind of go on the back like that. Okay. So we'll get some tape for that.